Okay, Julian, thank you so much for an inspiring presentation. I kept scribbling notes on that. I'm going to try and take it down a level from the really high level that Julian put us on, down to really what I think matters, to some changes that you can make. Oh, now I need to make sure I've got a control. I got so carried away by that. Disruption happens, as Julian said. I love that he talks about revolution, and it's, we see this around in everyday life. And I wanted to try and take some of the numbers that Julian said and talk about how it affects us in the room. I found this stat, from the same stat set that Julian had, that only 12% of the companies who are currently in the Fortune 500 were there in 1955. Think about that. Some of the hugest companies out there disappeared. I mean, they just dropped out of the big company area. And one of the reasons is technology, but you'll know the household names of some of the people who are at the top of that. I mean, 6 out of 7 of the world's largest companies by valuation were not even born in 1975. That's an amazing change that we've seen in our lifetime. And if you carry on with the following logic, you'll know this. Nearly half of the Fortune 500 will disappear. So many of us have got choices that we need to make. Are we going to be on the side of the companies that will make it to the end line, or are we happy to get factored out of the equation? Maybe that's okay. Julian said that 50% of the jobs would disappear also in that period of time. Maybe that's okay for us. But for those that really care about what they do, maybe we want to take some decisions. So that's really what we're going to try and deliver and drill down to today. So I've really got 3 themes that I want to talk us through to look at change. The first one is I want to talk about our addiction to acquisition. The second one, I want to talk about how recurring revenue makes the big difference to businesses these days. And the third one is the sea change that we see in the world of customer experience. But to get on the road, I wanted to pick out a few names and a few of the trends that we see. Really proud to have Salesforce, Amazon Web Services, and DHL Supply Chain as speakers at this event. And I'm going to try and pick out some of the differences that they've made to power our digital revolution. First of all, Salesforce, really the face of modern CRM. They're not the only ones here. We have a great company in the room, Hans Gronsles from SuperOffice. Thank you, Hans, for coming, a customer of CustomerGauge. Is also runs a CRM company. It's a bit more niche than Salesforce, but perfect for some of the things. And by the way, what's interesting about Salesforce is it's a company that's more than $100 billion in valuation. So if Salesforce misses out some gaps in the market, say 1%, there's still a unicorn to be had just in that one gap there. Salesforce and other CRM systems have enabled the things that Julian was talking about. His grandfather's shop, welcoming people in and knowing what they do. CRM systems allow us to treat customers no longer as strangers. We know what they are, we give these the data, and we empower people in the business, you know this. So this is really the sort of relationship revolution. The next one, with Amazon Web Services, is an example of how businesses are changing from being CapEx focused to OpEx focused. Anyone know what that means? You accountants in the room? If you've got, most businesses used to have to invest a ton of money, for example, to build a big server room. Now you can do it on your credit card. And I'm proud to say, actually, that we've grown CustomerGauge without owning a single server. I think it was only relatively recently that we stopped paying our Amazon Web Services bill by credit card, but it's been a recent journey on that. So this really allows companies to change the direction that they go in. And then the other one is, it's about businesses no longer need to be vertically integrated to succeed. And I think this is the DHL Supply Chain is a really great example of this. By the way, the part that's representing today is is a part of the business that runs those yellow vans that you see running around Amsterdam, or in the case of Amsterdam, bikes and boats. What DHL Supply Chain do is they allow businesses to focus on the core parts that they do well, the customer, the marketing, the sales, the relationship, and they can look after the sticky supply chain parts there. So we're really proud to have 3 speakers from these companies, and you're going to see Karen from Salesforce tomorrow, Alam, I think, is coming from Amazon tomorrow, and DHL later on today. But let's talk a little bit about how I got into this, and it really stems from something we call an acquisition addiction. Addiction can be used positively or negatively, but it's where we are today for many other companies. And there's a reason for this. It's so easy to spend money on acquiring customers these days. Companies like Google and Facebook have really made it easy. They've built these fantastic interfaces that allow us to track our ad spend, to put money down there, to figure out what our conversion ratio is, to understand what the demographics of the people are. It's so easy to do this. But the downside is that you're outsourcing your marketing department to people that know more about your customers than you do. That's kind of scary, right? But that's also one of the reasons why Facebook and Google and to some extent Amazon that Julian was talking about are really successful, because they understand this and they're able to aggregate customers' data together. And in fact, this was the reason why we got CustomerGauge started. Camilla and I worked at Sony and we spent $1 million 1 month on acquiring customers on Google with a terrible conversion rate. And I think that's the point, is that the efficiency of the acquisition side masks the fact that conversion can be terrible, something like 0.4%. So you're wasting a lot of money. But it's really enabled businesses to work together. For example, marketing departments now work seamlessly together with sales to deliver results, because they can deliver the meaningful numbers in a way that they couldn't before. And everybody on the retention side of the house looks jealously at that, because they've got all the data, but companies are not using that data in their own retention systems to do that. So well, I think of this as an addiction, because in moderation, it can be really effective. But if you let it go uncontrolled, you're giving your data over to people that do more of than you're doing yourself. And frankly, you could be wasting money, and you're leaving money on the table. And they're leaving money on the table if you're not retaining your customers at the same rate that you're acquiring. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the recurring revenue business. This was something we've seen a big trend recently to buy things on subscription, both in the consumer space and in business. The world is becoming a something as a service. And there's some really good reasons for this. It's really good, predictable revenue stream. And you can leverage the relationship you have with your customers. It's very good for cash flow if you can predict what goes on ahead. And it's really impacting areas of business. So the companies that you see up the top here, you may or may not know them by their ticker symbols. The one at the top, CRM, that's Salesforce. It's got a valuation of $113 billion, as I said. But going down the line, these are 23 companies in the US, 23 software companies with a valuation of more than $5 billion. There's a few homegrown ones from the Netherlands here. The second one down is ServiceNow. Workday, Team is Atlassian, an Australian company is in there. But you can see that there's a huge valuation in this. There was $100 billion in transactions just in the B2B software world last year. And there's a reason for this, is that these companies are laser focused on retaining customers. They use technology to build relationships and then lock them in. It's got to be in a good way or you won't keep retaining them. And the effects on their valuation are astonishing. To give you an example, I was at SaaStr a couple of weeks ago, and companies out there were talking about having retention rates of customers, net retention rates of 130 and 140%. Let me put that into perspective for you. That means you wouldn't have to acquire a single customer in a year, and you could still grow your business at 30 or 40%. That's pretty amazing. But that is the driver behind the valuation of these companies. Let's see some nods in the audience here from some investors. This is what happens when you get retention right and you start investing in things like customer experience and customer success. Big buzzword a few years ago. And how this translates into the world, it means that there's a new battleground out there with CX, customer experience, to deliver retention when people want to come back to you, to talk about the things that Julian was talking about for his grandfather's shop and also Amazon today. You are competing in the area of improved customer experience. It was Brian Halligan from HubSpot that said he estimates that you have to be 10 times better customer experience these days to to win business from other companies. If you're going to disrupt a market, you have to have an experience like Uber or Amazon or in the B2B space to really make this difference. But there are some challenges on it, because we talk about the customer experience, but if we talk about the discipline of customer experience itself, which many of you in the room do, there are some barriers that we've got. You've got a disconnect between connecting to the C-suite. I was talking to some people earlier on from the table here from the Lands for Sakering Bank. It's great to set the targets that we need to reach for Net Promoter, but setting a target is not enough. You've got to figure out the way to get there. You're also talking about that as well, Sylvia, about how that doesn't change the culture if you just set something out there and expect people to do it. At some stage, if you miss the number, you become disillusioned with it. This thing doesn't work. As Julian said, not all customer experience things work. And the other thing that we've seen over the years is this soft to hard metrics. This is the demand that many of you have. If you're reporting to the board, well, anecdotes don't get it. And by anecdotal evidence, Camilla and I used to go to a lot of customer experience events, remember that? And we were blown away sometimes by a customer experience story. I remember the Ritz-Carlton guy telling us about how they're able to deliver fantastic experiences by a chambermaid listening to a story about someone having a birthday and they deliver a birthday cake. Remember that? And we took this away. We were like, wow, what a life-changing experience. If only we could bring that into our business. But the thing is, these are just anecdotes, and they're great to illustrate a point. But you know what? They don't deliver change in your business. They don't convince other people in your business that you are onto something with customer experience. And that's what we mean by the CX disconnect. This is the journey that many companies are on. They've started to invest in customer experience, and you'll see if you're a professional, it's all about what customers do and creating a customer-focused culture. But what CEOs need out of that is they need the raw information and the delivery to create that competitive advantage. To be on that side of change that Julian is talking about. They want growth and profitability, and you just don't get it from soft CX numbers. I'm going to illustrate this by talking about a problem, a case study. Company that we know, we've been working with, had a really good Net Promoter Program. Been running it a long time. They had a really good response rate, above 30%. I mean, you guys are running a program, you'd probably be really happy with some of these numbers. They were closing the loop on about 80% of the cases out there. They had an NPS in the 60s, and the senior management were completely bought in. Everything's going right, okay? And then they lost an account churned. And then another one happened, and things changed. Now, I can talk about this company with some degree of depth and accuracy because that was our company. And we thought, I'm going to try and introduce the kind of impact that made on us. Guys, we thought we were Net Promoter experts. Camilla and I have been doing this since 2004. We've been doing Net Promoter for 15 years. We started the company in 2007. We built a business around delivering this, and we still failed because we couldn't understand why we were losing customers when all the signs were going in the right direction. Does that sound familiar to anybody? We had the response, the scores, we had the hierarchy in place. We knew what people were doing in the business. We had actions. We were pushing reviews out to the website, just like 3 years ago, so relatively recent history. But the reality was, we had our revenues in a silo. We didn't know what our customer revenue, how it was connected to our customer experience. We were not covering customers in the right way. We understood that one of the reasons for this was something called SPOC. You know what SPOC is? Single point of contact. Tracy taught us this. Thanks for bringing that. You have one contact in a company that's giving you tens and Net Promoter scores of that sort of stuff and reviews. Fantastic. What happens when that person leaves? You've got nobody else embedded in your business that's your client in B2B. You're going to lose all that. It's going to go out. Things like, it sounds trivial, but bounces. If you don't track your bounces, how do you know if people have gone away? It really relates back into the sort of the SPOC area. More importantly, if you're not using your other data like activities, what are your customers doing with your product? We didn't have our usage reported in our CX system. And we were running it separately to the rest of our processes. Remember, we're supposed to be CX professionals. We've been doing this a long time. So this was, to be completely honest, it was a wake-up call. It was like alarm bells ringing in our business. Look, if we can't do it, what are we doing wrong? I mean, it's just, for somebody that stands on stage and talks about how the importance of having CX, it's a kind of like important threshold to go over. So one of the things that we wanted to figure out is, were we the only ones that were doing this? Had we missed a trick? We thought we were out in front, but maybe there were other people doing it better than we were. What was going wrong? And you know what? We really wanted to get to the bottom of this. So about 2.5 years ago, we invested in some more research. We do NPS benchmarks research, but this time we went further. We teamed up with our friends at the MIT Business School in Massachusetts. They were part of this business transformation, digital transformation work that we did. By the way, strongly recommend that you get a copy of this. This is from our last Monetize event in Boston. It's available online if you want to download it. There's stacks of good material in this. I think, Simon, you were saying that you were still getting some stuff out of this. Key stats: 1/3 of all businesses don't know their own retention number. It's kind of shocking, right? If you don't know where you are with the customer churn, how are you going to make anything different? The thing is, it introduced more questions than we could answer. But it also showed us that there were some gaps in the market that we were not even addressing ourselves, that we were not seeing. So this then became a kind of like a wake-up call for our product and tech team. So the first step that we did is we started to bring in monetization. All right, now you may have seen the word around here, monetize. This is really the key step that we did. We started to bring in revenue into CustomerGauge to figure out what the impact customer experience had on the money that was coming in. Kind of important, right? First step to come over. We then started to go down the route of talking about this in terms of monetize. So this is back in May 2018, a year ago. And we started to focus more on account-based customer experience because it's different to consumer experience. When people are not companies, and if you're in the B2B world, you'll know that. You'll know that it's B2B is a collection of people that make a decision, and that's important that you figure out what they're doing. Frankly, this is underserved in our opinion. When we went through the work from our friends at Gartner and Forrester, they had nothing specific on B2B. There was no part of their research that was like, oh yeah, this is what you should use for a B2B side. It's more really focused on consumers. And a lot of the stories you see in the marketplace are to do with consumer-based NPS. I'm really interested to hear from you later on, Maurice, because this is really your experience world and about how you've done with this. But this is, so we really started to think, well, hey, we think we're onto something here. This is something that is fresh and is not being tackled. And this is something where we can take our customers on a journey. So I'm really proud to say we're launching a book today. Sarah's in the audience here. Sarah wrote this book, or pulled it all together. We all contributed to this in some way, but this is talking about this transformation that's going on at the moment to something account experience. It's beyond just customer experience because business to business companies deserve something better. And in here, we talk honestly about how we got to this place. We really open up about the issues that we had in CustomerGauge, kind of therapeutic, I think, but it talks about your journey that you can make. So I really encourage you to do it. These are literally hot off the press. They were delivered yesterday. You've got the first copies here. I hope you go and treasure it. If you want to buy some on Amazon, you can always do that later on. Really, what we're talking about is breaking through some of the things that even Julian was saying about the data silos. How do you get the data into your customer experience world? Make your retention data as important as acquisition. It's time to break the addiction to acquisition that you've got and to start to use the tricks that you've been doing in acquisition in the retention world to really engage your customers. Track your money all the way through the system. You can start then to make it predictable. Once you've started to put in your customer history in there and where people are going and you get the other data in, then you can start to figure out, what is this customer going to do? Are they going to buy more from me? Are they just going to drift on? Or are we going to lose them? Valuable things that you need to grow your business in this day and age. And the other thing which I think is really important, and we miss this, Julian was talking also about some of the people that you have in the business, millennials that come in. Millennials, turns out, are really good with data. So you can throw a lot of data at them. You can push your decision-making processes right down to the front line and let people act on that. And this is also a big shift because many of you are operating customer experience programs, but you're also in a silo. I know that when we had our customer advisory board recently, it turns out that the people running the program couldn't get the data out of the finance people. They were not allowed to bring it over, were they? So clearly, until you break down some of these walls internally, you're going to struggle to do this stuff. But this is really the journey that you need to be on with account experience. So how do we bring this into CustomerGauge? After all, I'm kind of a technologist at heart here. We've put it in our product in a way that we are launching today. And we call the part of the product that we put it in vitals, for vital sign. But the other part of the product, I should say, is CustomerGauge Voice. This is the sort of traditional CustomerGauge that we're used to, with deep insights in Net Promoter. But we've not been standing still on that. On our Voice product, we've added recently things like text analytics. We're starting to add AI in there to start looking at predictions. We've got an enhanced review situation going on. So you can start to, your customers who are tens or prepared to put a review on the website can amplify your voice. Interesting fact, around 20 to 30% of the response that we have on Net Promoter will go on to put a review online, which is a phenomenal amount. If you've got good NPS and you're doing that, you can really use your customers in an easy way to start putting that content out there. Julian was talking about also on Amazon as well. The other thing that we've done on the voice side is to bring in the B2B functionality in here, and some of the things that you've been really looking forward to, like reporting as a homepage. I know that's a big thing from DHL. We've been looking in that. And looking at enhanced actions. Now, you can see what's going on with the product in 2 demonstration places over here. That's always one of the popular things that these events have. But we're really proud to launch a complete new part of CustomerGauge today, which we call CustomerGauge Vitals, after vital signs. And this is a breakthrough technology that we have. We really believe that this is the way to go forward because it helps you understand the mood music of your clients. We're bringing in multiple streams of data from a CRM system. For example, how many meetings you're having with that person, or how many customer contacts you have, or are you doing a QBR? You have Zendesk or whatever your favorite support ticket system is. You can track when somebody puts a support ticket in. Whether you're sending marketing material out to them using your Marketo system or whatever that is. Or perhaps are they hitting your website or logging in? These are all the vital signs that you need to figure out if your customer is engaged. And this is what we missed out on. This is why we had the wake-up call. Because it turned out that we had no vital signs for some of our customers. We were not interacting with them. They were not coming back to us. Even the absence of putting tickets in or logging into the system is a sure sign that something's up. And we really believe this, for the first time, we're able to bring this together in the world of B2B. You can have your Net Promoter, your deep insights from a certain amount of customers, comments, sentiment, go deep on that, getting outside the realm of usage to decision makers in the business, and then combine it with this rich stream of data, which, by the way, Forrester says companies today only use 4% of the data that's available. So this is a way to bring it all together. And what's the benefits? You can spot the gaps. Visually, you can see if you have no dots up there. That's a pretty bad sign. It means you've got no engagement. It's basically the mood music is grim or silent. But when you've got a lot of activity going on, it's a good sign that you've got future business available. And so this is where we're going to put the artificial intelligence on. And we're lucky because CustomerGauge has got a great big data bank of customer activities from Net Promoter that we can start to use to help you compare programs. How are you doing on this? To put in the learning so you can figure out what to do next, what actions you should take with certain customers. So there's still the human element that's going to come in. There's still the way that, as Julian said, you can go into the challenger sale. but this shows you some of the data. And I'm picking up on something Sylvia and I were talking about. We're an Eventbrite client. Sylvia's going to speak to talk about the story. By the way, you'll have interacted with this if you come here because your ticket was bought on Eventbrite. So we're proud users of the software. But we just signed up on the web. We have no idea really of the deep opportunities that Eventbrite can give. And maybe this is something that could be spotted with our usage and brought to the fore on that, because we would gladly take more services from Eventbrite. The point about this is that it takes the silos out of your business and it allows you to integrate the insights department with marketing, with sales, with customer success, and put it right up to the board. And we've got some really interesting stories about how the board use it. I know the DHL are going to talk about how this allows them to reduce the noise between the top of the business and the customer. So this is what we have, and this launches today. You can take this back if you're a customer, and you can start to play with it in your solution. And I strongly urge you to go out and see the product team and see it in action, because we're really excited about this. Which brings me to pulling all of our strings together. If you think about the digital revolution that's going on, you've got a choice to make about which side you're going to be on. Not everybody in this room, not every company that's represented here today is going to make it. There's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of competition internally. If you're in the insights group, it's hard sometimes to get your program off the ground and taken seriously, funded. And if it's working well, how do you influence people in this? So there are some hard roads you need to take. You need to break down the silos to get the data in, and I'm not going to say it's easy because even we struggle to do it at first. But this is the choice that is in the case of everybody today. And I would love it if we can invite you to take that journey with us and come on this path to ROI. I'm so proud you're here, and I hope you take the journey with us. Thank you so much from everybody at CustomerGauge.